Hello and welcome to the Night Community Podcast, where our goal is to equip, inform, and challenge. My name is Pastor Josh, and I'm your host today, and I am joined by Pastor Jason.
Hello.
Pastor Jake.
Hey.
And the young gun, Pastor Dev.
Hey, what's up?
All right, so first off, this podcast is going to be on screen time, so this should be interesting, but I want to give you each time to just introduce yourselves, tell us what you do here at Ignite, because we're all on staff, co-workers together, and then also tell us, how many kids you have, because that will be relevant to the conversation, or
Okay.
if you're still trying to become an adult, how much time you have spent being a kid.
Okay, I'll start it, man. So I'm Jason Lineberger. I'm the lead pastor of Ignite. I've been here from the very beginning, and I'm really excited to encourage people to be on their screens as we talk about screen time and potential negative consequences to the Christian faith. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. I have 4 kids, and so screen time is a huge part of family life for us and a battle that I face as a parent every day.
Yeah, so I'm Jake Moore, and I'm the executive pastor here, and have 3 kids, 10, 8, and 15 months. And I'm excited about kind of navigating the world of screen time, especially as you look at it from different perspectives, kids, girls, boys, and just what that world looks like right now.
Yeah, my name is Devin Trulin. I'm the youth pastor here at Ignite Church. Been for about 2 years. Me and my wife, Dalen, currently have no kids. And by the time you're watching this, we still will have no kids.
You're not going to make an announcement of this,
Probably
okay?
not yet. Not for a little while. But super excited to be here, too. This is awesome.
You didn't want to make a shadow drop all of a sudden when this airs, you pop one out.
No, I'm not prophesying that over my life.
Okay, so I think... look, screens are everywhere.
Absolutely.
We have them at the church loaded down all over the place. When you hear the word and you hear a podcast that's going to be talking about screen time, what is the first thing that comes to your mind?
Oh my gosh. I mean, from me, first thing that comes to my mind is, I know there's probably way too much in my life and my kids' life. Screen time, honestly.
Yeah, like I have this weird imagination of like darkness, and then you see this one little light like shining up at your face, and it's like when I think of screen time, I think of this loneliness for some reason.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the big one is cell phones. We all think about our iPhones when we think about screen time, and that's the big dominant one. And it's easy to pick on, Gen Z because they're always on their phones. But how often are we on screen time as well with our televisions and our computers and just everything? So,
Yeah, that's good. For me personally, I think of iPads first. It's like the screen time, the main screen time. But for you guys, okay, so we have you two, both parents, Jason, Jake, and you are dealing with a lot of our kids.
Yeah.
So for you in particular, Devin,
Sure.
You don't have kids, but you obviously have a group of inherited children. What do you think about when you think about managing screen time for your students? Because you even deal with that with the get-togethers that you have.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to get students off of phones. I mean, that's just pretty obvious. That's something that we wrestle with as youth leaders is when we want to have serious conversations within small groups and within different events that we do. It is just hard to get them off of their cell phones. And so that's something that we have to battle with. And, their usage on their phones and on social media is just astronomical sometimes compared to ours. So we just have to keep that in mind that we're at completely different places almost.
Now, you have a unique thing where you have authority in their lives for a certain period of time, and then you also have the fact that, their parents are setting these boundaries. Do you have boundaries you set in place when they come necessarily to an environment so that you can make sure that there is adequate time away from screens?
No, we don't have any boundaries or rules that we stick in place right now. And honestly, I'd like to approach it from the fact of we want to give them an environment that's worthy of them putting their phones down for. And so we try to do it on that front. And we typically have success in that area. And then it's typically within small groups. It'll be a small group by small group kind of basis. If a small group is struggling more than any others with, screen time, then, they might have a case where they say, hey, let's all put our phones face down here at the table. And then don't pick it up if it buzzes. Don't pick it up if it rings, none of that. So it depends.
Good. All right, parents.
Hello.
I grew up in a house. It was like you got your butt outside or you were getting a whooping. Now, I don't know if that my parents actually cared about screen time or I was just an annoying kid. But that's what you had to do. So what are some problems that you face as parents with screen time? You can go ahead, Pastor Jake.
Well, so, it's a challenge because, as kids get older, it's just so much more prevalent that technology is a part of our lives. Just think about, my 10-year-old when he was 1 is a little bit different than my 1-year-old right now. And so my 1-year-old, he'll carry a phone around and he understands, like, you push the buttons to unlock it. He has no idea the concept and the reason why, what's inside of it, but he knows there is a screen and there is colors and there is music and all these other things, and he loves to watch Bounce Patrol on YouTube, and it's terrible, but
solid.
He does. And it's so, when I think about all that, it's like, man, you got to just navigate that season like tremendously different. And so I don't think there's any cookie cutter approach necessarily to screen time. And I don't think that, like, we had to just evaluate that kind of case by case, kid by kid, or at least in my house. And I'll be honest with you, like, and we've had seasons where it has been really, really good as far as navigating that. And we've had seasons that it has been not so good or even remotely terrible of navigating this kind of screen time as a parent.
Yeah, and it's hard. I know we're going to talk about this, later on, but it's not all bad, and that's why it's a challenge, I think, from a parental perspective. Yeah, when Jake and I grew up, and you too, Josh, and even you, Devin, as well, it's like screen time on television. Like, there was a limited time that the thing you wanted to see was on, and what's unique now is that it's on-demand content, really, for all of us. It's adults and children included, and so it's such a challenge because our kids have access to everything they want right when they want it. They have access to their friends and community right when they want it. There's a comfort level there that's very real, and I know we'll be talking more about that. But then also, to be honest with you, like, most kids are probably like my family, where at any given moment my kids might go in the den room, and me and Jessica, my wife, we're on our screens as well. And so there's this cultural thing that we're teaching them, whether we mean to or not, that it's just so acceptable. And so, I'm like you, man. When I was little, it was like, go play in the woods, get a bunch of ticks, get dirty. I mean, it really was bear grass, y'all. That's where I'm from. And it's just, I don't see that in this community nearly as much. And so it is the outlet. It's through a screen now. And so we're trying to navigate it. It's very real.
Yeah, I think with almost everything, even in ministry, there's this balance between something being useful and being harmful.
Absolutely.
So, when we talk about screen time, it's easy to go to the negative. We all kind of thought about that to begin with. But are there some positives? Has there been some good things that come out of screen time maybe you've seen with your kids or even your youth? You want to go ahead and start, Pastor Jason? I
mean, absolutely. One of the first apps that I actually had it with Gabby, who's now 11, and the twins are using it right now, is a learn how to draw the alphabet and like do your letters, and it's extremely intuitive. And like we haven't done the twins yet, but so far all of our kids went into kindergarten with they could write.
What app is it?
It's called I Write. Little lowercase I and then a big W, Write. I Write. It's got colors, sounds, all those things. The reward system, stickers for drawing it out. And it's like all of my kids could go into kindergarten not only knowing the alphabet, but writing the alphabet, which is something I certainly was not able to do at their age. So that's really cool. But then at any moment they're playing that, something might pop up, and they'll be on Netflix before I know it, or something else. Yeah.
Sounds like Devin trying to read the Bible.
I like you version 2, man.
Yeah. I would definitely say for us, like, it's been extremely positive. And one of those things is that you have a readily available resource library of things that you don't necessarily have. I remember being a kid, and it's like, if I wanted a book, it's like I had to go to a bookstore, and it's like, what is that nowadays, And it's like, now it's like our kids have used Epic as an app. And so like they have practically any book that they could possibly want, and they can read it. And one of the cool things as far as a resource goes, it sends like the parents daily updates, and it lets you know like how many minutes your kids read. And I don't know if they actually read it or if they just flipped the pages or whatever it is, but the technology is not just all bad. It can be used for such tremendous good. And I've seen that in our kids. My kids are really good readers, and I hope that my littlest one will be the same way. But I do think that it's partially as a result of having information and technology and the ability to do those things right at your fingertips.
Social media and our screens, they supplement community really, really well. We're able to access anybody at any time. And that is a great supplement when you're in youth ministry and you want to connect with students outside of the ministry. But the thing about it, where it becomes dangerous, and we may get into this in a little bit later, is when it tries to replace community. Like, you can always supplement, but it should never replace that community that you have face to face.
That's good. I think of even Christians have taken advantage of this potential, right? Right now, media is something we use. I think all of us use here for our kids and for our small groups. So I think that would you agree or disagree that there is a different levels of screen time of like being healthy, beneficial, and then complete waste?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to ask you this, Devin. You're not a parent.
Right.
Okay. But
Right.
you want to have kids. I know that because you've said it. And I know if Dalen's watching at home, she's nodding her head as well. I would love to hear your ideal idea of how you would monitor your child's screen time, future child, and then we're going to see how it actually plays out.
Wow.
No.
Yeah.
Bringing this back years from now. Go ahead.
Yeah, I love that you gave that disclaimer that I'm not a parent, and so I don't want to be that youth pastor that just kind of sticks my chin up and says, this is how you should parent. You know,
Yeah.
I have no idea. But I would just say to be involved authentically too. One of the things that we really preach to our leaders and to myself all the time is that students crave that authenticity. Like they will snuff out when it is fake so quickly. And so, you know, just be authentic about it. Like I love that you talked about the fact that you guys have your screen time too as parents. And so it's not that the fact that you hide that from your kids, like you show them and you show them how to do it responsibly. You model that for them. And so, so I think that's super important is try to model it, try to be authentic and try to be involved. And then, you know, maybe one more thing I would say is just be consistent about it. You know, be consistent about what your regulations are, what your boundaries are, what your stipulations are. Like, just be consistent about it all across the board.
That's good. All right, you guys have great wives.
We do way better than us, yeah.
But you're still in zone coverage. You have more kids than you have adults. We all know it is super easy for a screen to become a babysitter.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes it happens. Tell me what you do in order to limit your kids' screen time so that they do have other activities they're doing.
That's a great one. You want me to go first, man?
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I'll say, so not perfect in this, for sure. And it's funny because, we have 4. The twins have been a whole new adventure, and being completely frank with them, there's a noticeable difference. Every kid, there's been more screen time than the kids before.
Right.
With Gabby, she went with us everywhere. It didn't inhibit our life to have you're passing off or you have friends that you like. So it was like nothing changed. And then Nathaniel comes along and all of a sudden, Gabby needs something. So the screen is convenient. And now, oh my gosh, like if not for baby bum, and y'all don't maybe know what that is and you don't need to.
Baby what now?
Baby bum, B-U-M. It's a thing. It's a thing. Like I don't know how we would have survived the first year with the twins because it's like anytime they screamed, you literally could put them down in front of a screen, a television usually, play that for a little while, and they're good. Like you can live a little bit of life. And so we're still trying to figure out and navigate that. It's really interesting the difference. Gabby is all about direct connections with people, with her friends when she's on screen. She's or maybe doing art. She's very rarely on a screen if she's not connecting with someone or maybe doing something artistic. My son's a really big gamer. And so he does games, but it's also very community focused. And the twins, they're the ones that what I would say they consume media. And so the way they use screens is really different. And so we're constantly, Jessica and I, trying to figure out what's appropriate and what's not with all of them. And I don't know whether it's right or not. Yeah,
and that's kind of what I was referring to about like it's not a cookie cutter approach. I think like you could read a book or you could write a book or we could all write stories about things. And I think that sometimes we struggle with like this idea that one approach is the right approach, or that when we're not doing very well at this, monitoring screen time or limiting screen time, that like we're failures as parents. And I think that we have to guard ourselves against thinking that. So if you're watching this and you're like, that's me, we've been in that boat, whether you got 1 kid or 3 kids or 4 kids, or you're monitoring tons of kids. And so I think that like for our family, we've seen that very much so play out. Our son Levi did not have hardly any screen time, but the same thing goes, it's not the screen time. It's like our kid didn't have any sugar because we wanted to protect him from like all the sugar bugs and all this other stuff and being wild. And then now like our 1-year-old is like, give him a cookie so he'll be quiet.
Num-num.
Exactly.
Where are the cookies, Dad?
It's this is what you kind of do as a parent sometimes. And I've seen that happen. Our littlest one does consume media because it is just something that he's looking at it and it does grab his attention. And so sometimes that's the only way that my wife can maybe sweep the floor or load the dishwasher. That's a thing for us at our house, load the dishwasher. And just as Pastor Jason said, oldest gamer. So it is I think it's probably more the biggest struggle in our household is like how do you monitor and limit games. I don't even really know a good
really,
solid answer for that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
really
the
hard.
question that people would be asking is, what are the tips? Like, if you're at home watching this and thinking, my child is consuming a lot of screen time, how do I encourage them to, put down the screen? Or especially you guys mentioned there's not all the screen time comes in equal forms. You mentioned your daughter is interacting with other people.
Yep.
Right. If you're FaceTiming grandma, is that really screen time?
Yeah, does that count? I can say things that a few things that we try to do, I think, do pretty well. We are pretty traditional in that we get around the table almost every night, even if it's with like fast food. And the pandemic has definitely helped that. I know that kind of like puts it in a point in time. When this was filmed, we're in the midst of the pandemic. But that's during that time there are no screens. And like I get mad. I get actually upset if anybody even has a phone near.
That's good.
That table. Something like game night, maybe once a month, being real with you guys, we'll do something like that. But we do try to have moments where it's like, we all got to come down, we got to be together. And sometimes we'll do that and we'll all engage in a communal screen. I mean, being real with you, but it's a shared experience. The thing that is so hard with what Jake was speaking to with games is a lot of it, where our sons are at, they are actually in more competitive gaming, and it necessitates a headset. So it's not like I'm hearing who they're talking to and who they're friends with. They're hearing it, and I'm having to try to keep close watch on it. And it's all, his son is Mr. Fishy and mine's Turf Master. So like I'm seeing this, all these random names, and it's like you don't know if it's a good guy, it's a bad guy.
Right.
Yeah, that's hard. Whereas with Gabby's communication, when she says she's talking to Chloe, she's talking to Chloe. And I see it actually is a picture with Chloe on it, or Sydney, or whoever, Yeah,
I love what you said about the dinner. And I think our family, we have seasons of that's a really big part of our life. And then other times it's like we struggle at that. But the thing that I would say probably won't surprise these guys, but for us is like having a schedule. And so it's like, she's laughing. But having a schedule. And at our house, it's on the refrigerator. And it's like, especially now, it's the school season. So doing virtual school during the pandemic has been a huge challenge. But it's like, if there is a schedule that says, hey, you can play games, you can watch TV, you can do these things, you can do them during these windows, has really helped this out of control spiral that sometimes does happen even unintentionally during the summertime when there's not as much of a structure to kids' life. And so, but having a schedule, accomplishing chores or whatever. And at our house, one of those things is playing outside. And so whether it's taking a walk around the block or if it's just running around in the yard, that should come first before screen time. If we can do that well, attitudes are good, family's good, things are well. If we do it poorly,
so maybe
it's a
even
struggle.
setting aside some time where it's like we are going to be separated from the screens, or we're going to do something with the family. You mentioned even like spending time with the family in screen time could, even though it's in front of a screen, isn't necessarily screen time.
We're sharing it together. Another thing for you parents that have gamers as well that I do. And it's not, I wish I was more disciplined and like I could tell you, we do this every month or every, quarter. But I do it regularly is my son's a Fortniter, Dex is as well. I go in and basically say, okay, right now you have 30 seconds to write down the names of the friends that you really want to keep, because we're cleaning out your friend list, because all these people friend him. At any given time, there's 78 friends, and he really only knows 12 of them. Like that, there's a real relationship there. And it's like, hey, those guys, their names, write down their names, because we're clearing out your friend list, because it limits the people being able to jump in with just anything. For it's like, these are the people, and if they really care about this person,
I love that, Jason.
That's good.
That's a question I wanted to ask you, Devin, is that, we talked about screen time and the dangers of being on a screen. But what we haven't talked about is there a danger in a predatory nature or even in a bad influence nature of being kids on the screen? You mentioned headset. We can't hear who they're speaking to.
Yeah.
We can't necessarily always know what we're doing unless we're watching them in front of that screen, or maybe the screen time is online on the computer. Do you think there is an inherent danger for those kids that are having that screen time where it is that connectivity?
Yeah, there is a super, super danger. I love the practical tips that you guys mentioned, by the way. Those were super practical for parents. And so that was amazing. But yeah, I think what you do is great, because those 70 some people that Nathaniel does not know, like how many of those are really bad eggs? Like, probably a good portion of them are bad eggs. Like you start getting into some hackers that you don't need to be associated with. And it's like, those people, they don't know the Lord. So they're extremely toxic, and that toxicity will blend into Nathaniel's life and lead into him being more and more toxic. And that was one of the tips that I wanted to give, was just eliminate the toxicity early and consistently, because like by the time they get to middle school and high school, we see that video games are just a trigger. It is a light switch, and they get so stinking toxic the minute that they jump on a game and get killed or anything. And it's like, but if you can eliminate that early, then you can do yourself a big favor in that way.
Right.
So,
let me speak into that real quick, because I think it's really good to add something to that. Something I've seen in my son, and I don't say this to say that he's perfect, because he has his flaws dramatically, but by creating a very healthy value system within your family, whether you have traditional values or not, being able to for them to know right from wrong. And so a good example would be just not even that long ago, my son got off of a video game, and I was like, what happened? Like, why did you do that? And it wasn't because anybody made him mad or anything, but because somebody that he's playing with, somebody in that circle was using language that they shouldn't have been using. And he knew that, hey, that would be unacceptable to mom and dad. And so he just got off of there. And so it was really cool for me to be able to see
awesome.
like he enacted the value system that we have in our home without having to let it go too far.
That's good.
And I really, really, really think that by any parent really making sure that you have values and you talk about those things with your kids regularly, hopefully will eliminate some of that toxic behavior
that's
in
good.
the future.
That's good.
Do you have anything to add? Or
No, I mean, I love hearing that. I think that, there just has to be a lot of monitoring. And I mean, again, there might be a direct question for this, Josh, but one of the things I love, because, my daughter is in that, preteen, teen stage. Are there any apps particularly? Because like we use iPhones, and so she's part of my family. I have to approve any app she downloads, which is helpful. But now there's so many that can seem innocuous. Sometimes even social media apps hide themselves as looking like a game or something.
Yeah.
Any suggestions you'd give for parents like me to be watching out for? Like, it says that she's trying to get, bouncy ball, but bouncy ball really isn't about a game. It could be social media.
Right.
Yeah.
I would just say check it out. I mean, I love that you have the password thing set up so where you have to approve the app before she downloads it.
Yeah.
And then I would even say go the extra step and check it out, because I mean, they're constantly evolving and changing and stuff like that. So the minute that you may find out about it, you may be behind the wagon, and so then there's a new one. So I would say, just investigate, and then like you make the personal decision, like, do you want Gabby on that or not?
Yeah.
And then just like you do with Nathaniel, like clearing out his friends list, like, do the same thing with social media accounts. Like, who is following your daughters? Like, that is a huge deal. The biggest predatory app is Instagram for
so
young
easy to
girls.
follow people,
yes, and it is scary. It is so scary. Like, you can go on YouTube videos and find these people setting it up and trying to see, who are the predators around them and trying to like catch them. And it's just like, it happens so quick, and it's so scary that the times that we're living in.
I think we're so often as parents trying to balance that freedom, like you said, Levi made a good decision. You're so proud of him, with this like need to protect them from making a horrible, decision that could alter their lives. And you guys touched on it well. It seems like the theme is, as a parent, you have to be involved. You have to be involved in what your child's doing. You have to teach them values. Speaking of that, listen, your personal screen time. All of us. Look, I have a son. I've been caught with the dad 5 times because I was texting or reading something on my screen.
Right.
So don't pretend like I'm the only one who's convicted by this. But how do you manage your own personal screen time?
I'm on my screen a whole lot. The nature of my work is almost I'm almost always on the screen when I'm working, because I'm writing sermons, I'm studying using tools we talked about in another podcast, but then personally too, I'm a voracious reader. Kindle app is my go-to, and there's a couple internet things. So like we looked today just in preparation for this, y'all, and today I've been on my phone a solid 4 hours. My phone and my iPad, that doesn't include my computer, so there's every possibility I've really been on some sort of a screen 6 to 7 hours today. And so I don't know that I do that well. I try so hard when I'm home to put my phone someplace I can't get it. One of the reasons why I got the watch I got, so I got a Apple Watch. Y'all forgive me if you think that it's stupid for pastors to have me or useless. But one reason I got this is that I don't have to have my phone in my pocket all the time when I'm home. Is there something going on? I can look and see if it's really important. But if I have it with me, it just comes out like my hand has a mind of its own sometimes. And so I try to avoid that.
Yeah. I think a struggle. I mean, I think it's always a struggle, especially if you love what you do and you're passionate about what you do is to make sure that not everything's an emergency. I mean, sometimes I think, and I'm so guilty of it, to think that everything is an emergency, whether it's a text message or an email or a phone call or whatever it may be. I feel like at times like this can't wait. And the reality is it always can wait. And so just kind of navigating that, I would say that I'm in the same boat this day as far as our average screen time, and that doesn't necessarily include computer and things like that. And so actually, if I had to guess today, minus this conversation and another conversation, it's probably been like the entire day of work related time. And so for me, the reminder that I get comes from my kids, and like, you know, they ask for something, I need to be attentive to that. But really, it's just having a healthy relationship with my wife that she reminds me often that I need to spend time with my kids or do things, not in a bad way, but it's just like, hey, let's do family time. Hey, let's watch a movie. We got plans to watch a movie tonight and spend time together. And it's like, yeah, it's screen time, but it's that community time, it's shared time. Yeah. And so I'm just putting good people around you to call you out sometimes when you need to be called out, whether that's a kid or a wife or a coworker or something, to say, hey, are you really taking care of yourself in that area?
Are you asking me to call you out?
Please.
Okay.
One of our big struggles when we were first married, you know, when you're single, like it's easy to go home and just to game. Just to unwind and to game, and you can stay up late and game and things like that. It's so easy. But then, you know, we get married, and then all of a sudden I'm having to put in a routine where, you know, I can't game every single night of the week when I get home from work because I'm spending time with my wife, you know, and my wife isn't a gamer, so we don't connect in that way. Yeah. So the routine that we have is my Thursdays and Friday nights now. Like those are my nights that I can get on and game. And so we understand that, but then through the week, it's like, I'm not gaming. So we try to reserve one night for date night. And then we obviously have a bunch of different things that we do throughout the week, but you know, those 2 nights are my game night. And then kind of a current struggle right now is when my wife gets home, to pause the show, to put my phone down and greet my stinking wife, you know, that's the biggest problem right now. And I mean, it's vice versa. You know, we both had this issue. And so
how do you greet her?
With the kiss, obviously, Josh.
So sweet.
You know, you haven't had kids yet. I just want to see if.
Okay. Yeah. Can't disclose that on the podcast, but
not going any farther.
Not any farther. But I mean, another thing too that we've had, and we've just kind of had this since we've been, you know, in cell phones, is that we don't sleep with our phones beside our bed, and we don't sleep with it under our pillow. Like we don't do that. We keep it in another room, and that's so big. And you know, for every student guy that I come across that we talk about pornography, it's like, you know, where's your phone when you go to sleep? Like, do your parents have it locked up? You know, is it somewhere that you can't get to it? Because, you know, that's when most guys struggle. And so like, if you're in a pornography struggle, it's like, you cannot sleep with your phone within reach. Like there's just no way you can do that. Not your computer, not anything, you know? Yeah. And just as a general thing, like the very first thing that we do if our phones are nearby is we wake up, we grab our phones. And that is the worst way to start a day. So like you can absolutely not do that. You have to keep it away. So we keep it in our bathroom. And so that's my alarm. I have to get up and go to the bathroom and turn off my alarm, but it keeps it away from me too.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's really good.
That is really good.
Yeah. I guess even as my son doesn't have a phone yet, just to hear that, you know, I imagine it makes sense that nighttime is so vulnerable.
Yeah.
You know, as you sit there and lay. So that's really awesome. Also explains why you don't answer my texts at night.
But does not explain why Josh is texting him at night, guys.
I play games. We play games together.
I mean, that is another thing. I try to be super unavailable, so I'm so sorry for anyone that texts me after like 5 p.m. You know, I try to be super unavailable in those hours, you know, where I'm kind of resting and recharging and spending time with my wife.
It's usually not an emergency. So, that's good.
Yeah, that's really good.
That is good.
Yeah.
Do you have something?
Well, I was just going to say what I heard you say a lot, I love, and it's good because it's right up my alley, but it's a routine. It's like just having a routine. And it's like, I love that every day when I come home, we have dinner at the table. There might be a TV show on in the background somewhere. We're at fault for that a lot. But my wife and I, we send the kids off and we have a conversation every night. And it's like, that's a routine for us. And it helps be able to establish some of those boundaries, helps be able to have some of those tough conversations. And keep the phone away during those times. The routine is really positive.
That's cool. As I sit here with my phone.
No, it's completely okay. I mean, I love the practical tip that you had too. And my immediate thought was, I know some kids are going to say that they have to have it for things like alarms, but there's so many other options.
Absolutely. You can buy an old traditional alarm.
Do you believe that we used to wake up on time before phones?
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
That's just like, it's amazing that we actually got somewhere before GPS. It's crazy. How did we do it? How did we do it?
Now that I did not do well. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we close, we're recording this now, and I think most people are going to listen to this while we're in the middle of some kind of pandemic with COVID. Has your position on screen time or your thoughts on screen time or your limits changed during that period, being that there is less interaction, there is less human, there's distancing?
Yeah. I mean, I'll start. I guess we'll go around. I mean, the obvious answer, I think, in some regards is yes. Screens have, they have a new role in our life now, and it's one of education. It's one of even a deeper sense of connectivity. I do think that there could be something too. I mean, of course, smartphones are the source of a lot of where we're currently in, but we also, like, when we were kids, it was a soccer mom syndrome. And like what good parents did is they took their kids to 3 or 4 events every single freaking day. And I do think, like, as an adult, like, that's the last thing I want to be, is a dad that's just in my car more than in my house. And I think that there's even some cultural things there where it's like, like the way we raise our kids is just different. Like, we're just not as on the go as maybe our parents were with us. And so, the pandemic has shown some of actually the positive things. I think it's shown how community can be done well, but I think it's even more important that we understand that this thing that we're exposing our kids to more, it can be very, very addictive, and we have to be even more cautious.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would totally agree. And position maybe it changed, but it's not necessarily because we just like signed up for it and raised our hand and be like, man, I would love to give my kids more screen time. I mean, that's what they do. And literally this week, our kids' school changed where they are in a class, a Google Meet, from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. I mean, like, they do not get off of their Chromebooks. And so, I mean, it is in front of them. And that does cause, like, sometimes physical things that happen. But we can't really do anything about that right now. I do know that during the pandemic, especially the quarantine period when it was like, don't go anywhere for, several weeks. It's almost like, if you don't have screen time, then kind of what are you going to do? And I think we kind of defaulted into that weird like cycle, almost like a Twilight Zone thing, that like, if we don't have screen time, like, we're going to die or something. And it's like, you can actually talk. It's like, you can actually play with your toys. This is my kids. Like, we buy you all these toys and you don't play with them. And so, but I do think that I think we're in a really cool way learning that screen time technology can be amoral. It is good and it is bad. And we have to know how to guard against both of those things, just like we talked about the apps, just like talk about guarding screen time with our kids or whatever it may be in this conversation. There can be such good for it. And so if we'll harness that with our value system, man, like, we'll see God do some great and tremendous things through this time. And if we don't, we continue to see it be a very negative thing in our life.
Well said.
Yeah. I mean, through this season, we've done the Zoom ministry and we've done all of that. And I think what we've learned is that nothing really replaces face-to-face interaction. That, like, as timeless as that is, it's never going to go away,
It's good.
Amen.
It's good.
I think people are even craving that. All right. We're about to wrap this up. You guys have shared a lot of really good things, a lot of different perspectives. Just each of you take a few minutes or whatever time you need just to say what it is you really want people to take away from this. Or maybe there's something you've heard from someone else that you really want to implement that in your life, that you really want to re-emphasize again for people to know.
The one thing, if I could leave one thing, is, hey, moms and dads, you lead the way in this. I know that, a lot of, we're blessed. We go to a thing that we're really passionate about doing. And a lot of you, your passion is for your family, and you might be going to a job that you don't love or in a situation you don't love. And what you want to do when you get home is you want to escape into your screen. There's just this comfort in doing that for us as adults.
Right.
Like, love your family enough to find some way to separate yourself, because if you will lead your kids into a game night or into a shared meal or whatever, they will follow you, but you have to lead the way. Like, what a hypocrite you are to tell them to get off their screens when you're on the couch on your screen. So, like, we gotta do it.
That's good. That's good. To tag right off of that, I think my perspective would be, moms and dads and people, you're not alone. I mean, like we are all dealing with the same thing if you're a parent. But even that, as a human being in today's society, we're all dealing with the same thing. So when you are struggling with screen time, or where you're struggling with your kid and trying to get them off of Fortnite, or you're trying to figure out this whole thing, it's like, just don't get trapped into the lie of the enemy that you are the only person dealing with this in this one situation where you isolate yourself, you don't ask questions, and you don't ask for help. And so being willing to ask for help, have the conversation, but then also being able to implement some change. That's the hardest thing in any part of society, is actually implementing change, but being willing to try many different avenues to make it work.
Man, that was great. Hard to follow those things.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. There we go. I mean, just one of the things is a great starting place is using the screen time feature on iPhones. Just start there and just recognize that, beyond 3 hours of social media time a day is really unhealthy. You start getting into the 4, 5, 6 hours a day, and that's where you really start to see, mental health start to wreak havoc with depression, anxiety, feelings of loneliness, and the suicide rate being as high as it is. And so you really got to monitor that and set that limit at 3 hours, and just let that be an alert to you, like, hey, this is enough. So now I need to take my student away from this and replace it with something better. Because it does no good to take something away, but not replace it with something that's more beneficial, like the outside time, the dinner times, the game nights, those kinds of things. It's just like sin. If you take the sin away, but don't fill it with anything that's more beneficial for you spiritually, then you're just going to fall right back into that sin. It's not going to help you at all.
That's good.
And just a resource I would encourage our parents in is the book iGen by Gene Twenge. That's one that I've read recently that has really, really helped shape my opinion on this topic. And it helps to understand where they're coming from, because they're definitely products of this environment that, they've never known a time without iPhones. They've never known a time without the internet. And we have to understand that and know where they're coming from, and so that we can empathize with them and that we can know how to help them best. So
That's really good.
It's good.
I think you're going to be a great dad one day, bud.
Well, if these guys keep speaking into me, that was good stuff. That was really good stuff.
I'm going to have another one just so I can implement.
Oh, you hear that, Catherine? You hear that?
All right. So thank you, Pastor Jason, Pastor Jake, Pastor Devin, for being here. Now we can all go back to our screens, right? If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a review. Share it with a friend on social media. Also, if you have any topic questions or what you'd like to hear us talk about, you can submit them at podcast@ignitechurch.com, or you can comment below if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. We hope you have a great week, and thanks for joining us on the Ignite Community Podcast. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Peace out.